If there's one manufacturer that we think of when we think of electrification in cars, save for perhaps Tesla, then I would say it's Toyota. And it's all down to this, because when we think of hybrids, we think of the Toyota Prius. It was really the first mass manufactured hybrid that was out there, and it was a huge success for the company through a few generations. And the new one, well, that's quite a looker indeed. And at one point, this really was the darling of Hollywood. It made people see things from a green perspective. But when it comes to battery electric vehicles, then I think it would also be fair to say that Toyota seemed to have, dare I suggest, lagged behind most of the competition. Because other than the medium-sized BZ4X, they've really not bothered with electric vehicles in some respects. And the BZ4X, whilst a good car, and better these days it was when it was first launched, it still isn't a standout product in a class that is crammed with talent such as the Skoda Enyaq, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, and of course the Kia EV6. Well, all that could be about to change, and it's all going to be thanks to this car, the new Toyota Urban Cruiser, which is going to strike right at the heartland of the all-electric B-segment SUV. Welcome to this week's edition of Sneak Peeks. Welcome to the new Toyota Urban Cruiser, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before I get started on this week's edition of Sneak Peeks with, of course, Toyota's new Urban Cruiser, it is, of course, the time where I would just ask you, just to make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Once you've done that, press the little bell button, it's down below, because that's the way you'll receive a notification of when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. Once you've watched the video, if you enjoy it, and I sincerely hope you do, then make sure you give it a little thumbs up, and of course, as always, don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let us know what you think about the cars we feature on the channel, such as Toyota's new Urban Cruiser, and of course, on the AutoEV channel on the whole. So, a couple of little caveats I've just got to mention before I do crack on. First of all, we're in a studio within Toyota's new media centre in the south of England, so it is a little bit echoey in here, so I apologise on that. And you'll also hear other noises there, because that's the press garage on the other side of this wall. So there'll be hammers going along and drills going off and wheels being changed and cars coming in and out, so there might be a little bit extra noise in the background. Also as well, this is a pre-production car that they've managed to get in the UK, and I have to say it's not the brightest of colours, but I'll do my very, very best to make sure I highlight as much as I can of the car to make sure you get all the information that you are going to need on it. Okay, so Toyota. I've got a bit of a soft spot for the brand, I have to admit that. And the main reason for that is, first of all, my father was a Toyota owner. He was an owner-driver, Toyota. I learned to drive in his 1987 Camry when he had that, which it was one of the first of two that he had. He then went on to have multiple Land Cruisers and a couple of Lexuses as well. He really loved the brand. And a lot of that was also down to the fact that his brother-in-laws owned a Toyota dealership. So my family had a Toyota dealership in the south of Scotland, where I worked a little bit actually in the mid-1990s. And now I myself have actually owned a Toyota Celica. But I do think that it is fair to say that when it comes to their electric offerings, their full battery electric vehicles, they've sort of not been at the forefront of it. Great with hybrids. As I say, when you immediately think of hybrid, you think of the Toyota Prius. You know, and when you think of some of the iconic cars that Toyota have built, you know, the MR2, the Corolla GT twin cam, the Celica, the Supra, you know, the rallying success, they've always been right at the front of things. So I always found it odd that when it comes to the battery electric vehicles, they weren't quite at the cutting edge, given their expertise when it comes to electrified drivetrains in the likes of the hybrids. But all that's about to change. Now, although we've seen the BZ4X up until now, and as I say, good car, but just not a great one, you know, a bit inefficient, a bit mediocre in a class that's crammed with talent, this is where things start to get serious, because the B-segment SUV market is massive. It's huge. 1 in every 5 new cars sold today in Europe is a B-segment SUV. And electrified B-segment SUVs are big, big business. And I know a lot of people get upset when I say this, but Toyota this morning in the presentation are saying this is to compete with things such as the Kia EV3 and the Skoda Elroq. 2 cars they've mentioned, not me. Okay, so they see that as competition for this car. And they're planning to do an awful lot more, because between now and 2026, which let's be fair is only a year away, you know, they will have 15 electrified vehicles across their entire range, and 6 of those are going to be full battery electric vehicles on a dedicated platform. That's big talk from a company that's pretty much just about to offer its second battery electric vehicle. But given the might of Toyota, and given their sort of like attention to detail and their attention to engineering excellence, well, I wouldn't bet the house on them not being a force to be reckoned with very, very shortly. But is this going to be one of those cars that's going to be a real standout car in the marketplace? Well, let's take a little walk around it and see what we think. So true to form, we start with the car's styling, and I quite like it. It's a chunky little monkey. I think it's a good looking car, this, I really do. It's based upon the car that was a concept, the urban EV concept that they showed back in 2023. And then the car was actually revealed as a sort of like on the external side, certainly, at the recent Brussels Motor Show. But now we've actually got the interior to show you as well, because it hasn't been seen up until now as well. But we're going to start with the outside first. And it's starting sort of like to bring the Toyota family together, isn't it? The hammerhead styling, as they class it. Look at the lights, you know, it's almost got that sort of wraparound lights that we've seen with the BZ4X, the CHR, and of course the new Prius, which is very, very similar. But it's quite a squat and purposeful little car. It's very rugged looking, very much a sort of like a boxy SUV, which is what Toyota wanted to sort of like appeal to, that urban SUV type of customer, you know, that likes the sort of like the thought of driving around an SUV, but doesn't necessarily need an SUV. But there are benefits to that sort of boxier styling, as we'll see as we go through it. So what have we got? Well, as I say, you've got your sort of like these nice sort of LED DRLs that run along there, and then of course your single projector lamp in there, but then the body colour bit there, and it looks almost sort of like C-shaped there, this hammerhead bit where you've got the body colour strip that runs across the top of the front of the car, just in front of the bonnet there. Forward-facing camera just below the Toyota badge there, and then as we come down here you see where all the cooling is done here. Now these are active aero flaps that's in there, so these will open and close whether the car will determine whether or not the battery needs to stay warm or whether it needs cooling. So that's where all the cooling for the battery itself is coming from. And this gloss black area down at the bottom here, now obviously we'll go through trims and specs a little bit later on, but that's sort of like, you know, sort of like a nice contrast to sort of the bodywork here. It is quite a nice colour, this. It's a sort of metallic grey, khaki green almost, but it's probably not the best to have in a studio like this, in fairness. A nice bright colour would have been better. Anyway, you've got some nice aero work at the side there with air vents, again, to sort of take airflow round the side of the car and then down the side of it and past the wheels. But yeah, as I say, I think we're off to a good start, but it's the side profile that I have to say that I really like about this car. So, just to give an idea of size on this car, as I say, B segment SUV, okay? 113 millimetres longer than a Toyota Yaris Cross, a big player in this B segment SUV marketplace in Europe. 200 millimetres longer than a Jeep Avenger, okay? But 25 millimetres shorter than a Kia EV3. But here's the interesting thing, 25 millimetre longer wheelbase than that car. Interesting. It's a little bit narrower as well than the EV3, just a tiny bit, little bit narrower. Right, on the side profile, you can see more than a passing resemblance to the BZ4X, can't you? You know, with the sort of like the big sort of like squared off wheel arches with the black plastic cladding, you know, that cuts through the charging flap there on the near side, front wing there, so not the best place for it, but that's where it is. And then of course, more cladding down at the bottom here, because it pinches the bodywork in. But again, it's nice and sharp and sort of angular in its sort of styling, almost boxy, square edge look, which, as I say, gives it a real family resemblance to a lot of other cars in the Toyota range, such as the BZ4X, such as the Yaris Cross, such as the new Land Cruiser, which is a great looking car. So yeah, so it's designed to sort of like be more of that SUV sort of like look car rather than apologetic little crossover. You know, it means business. Now, there was talk of them offering an all-wheel drive version of this car, and in some markets there will be an all-wheel drive, a dual motor version. At the moment, we're not going to get that in the UK, okay? Toyota UK don't see a big uptake in sales of Yaris Cross, which has been offered with all-wheel drive. The CHR hybrid, which has also been offered with all-wheel drive. They're saying that they hardly sell any of them, so they don't see the need to make this an all-wheel drive car, okay? So it will just be a single motor front wheel drive only. You'll get Urban Cruiser in for now. Anyway, there we go. Depends on the model that you get, and as I say, we'll go through trim levels. This is a top of the range model here, and it gets the duotone paint finish here. So you get the black roof, and then obviously sort of, you know, the body colour there. Big chunky door mirrors on the car. That's what I mean. It's like Land Cruiser-like almost, you know, big square chunky door mirrors. I like that. You know, obviously the side repeater in there, little camera embedded in there as well. And then of course you get the big chunky door handle there. But your rear door handle is hidden in the C-pillar, as it is in a lot of cars sort of these days. But it's got quite a nice ride height, isn't it? It's got quite high. I mean, I'm not a particularly tall man. I can just see over the roof of it. You know, I'm only 5'8". You know, I appreciate if you're 6 foot, it's maybe not appeal that way. But it looks like it sits quite high off the ground, so it gives good ground clearance. And of course, another thing that I do like, doors that wrap right underneath the bodywork. So of course, when you're climbing in and out, you're not going to get your trousers dirty as you climb across the sill. So I do like that. But yeah, I think inside profile, it's a good looking, chunky little monkey. I really like it. Now, you might be looking at it going, that looks a bit familiar. And it maybe does, because if you've seen Suzuki's new e-Vitara, these two cars are sisters to each other. So like with the BZ4X, which has the Subaru Solterra cousin from Subaru, this has a cousin in the Suzuki e-Vitara. So again, you know, it's sharing that sort of technology, sharing that sort of componentry as well, to make sure that obviously the cars, you know, costs are they're trying to keep the costs down. And the car is going to be built in Suzuki's India plant as well. So again, you know, it's like keep trying to share costs across the two brands to make sure that the entry point price level of this is very competitive. And now we get round the rear of the car. Now, there's a little resemblance, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you guys might have different ideas, but I did see when I first saw it in pictures a little bit of Alfa Romeo Junior here. You know, the sort of lights that just drop down a bit. This isn't a light bar, it's just a sort of like a Perspex cover. That's the lights there, just at either side. So it doesn't have the full width light bar at all. So that's just sort of like that piece of trim there, that Perspex trim that runs across. I quite like that. Rear wiper, I definitely like that. High level rear brake light on the big roof spoiler there. There isn't an electric boot lid, okay? It is just a manual one on the car, but it is quite light. And is there any real need for electric? But look how far down that comes into the bumper as well. Now we're going to talk about practicality, but again, like the rest of the car, big solid black plastic bumpers at the back of the car. There is a reversing camera tucked up underneath where the number plate is, and of course you get your Urban Cruiser badge across there, and that's your lot really. So what do we think? Well, I think we're off to a good start. As I say, I like the styling of it. As I say, it's quite a nice chunky look about it. I like that sort of, you know, and the clues in the name, isn't it? Urban Cruiser. I mean, they should just have maybe called it Urban SUV, but you know what I mean? It is designed to be more for the urban environment. But it ties in an awful lot. You can see it being part of the Toyota family, especially when it comes to their SUVs. You know, Yaris Cross, this, CHR, you know, RAV, Land Cruiser. So it does tie it in with the family, and I do like the look of it. But it doesn't really matter what I think, does it? You know, it's more important what you guys think. What do you think of the Toyota Urban Cruiser? Oh, and by the way, Urban Cruiser is a car that Toyota have built before, very briefly. Now, way back in, I think it was 2009 to 2013 or something like that. So it's a name that is synonymous. It's a name that, although we've maybe forgotten about in the UK, that car is still well known across the globe, especially in the likes of Asia and Africa. So that's why the Urban Cruiser name has made a bit of a comeback here. But what do you think, as I say? It's more important what you guys think about it. Does it tempt you? Would you rather have this over, say, a Kia EV3 or a Skoda Elroq or a Jeep Avenger or, you know, something like that, Peugeot E2008? Or is it still not quite good enough? As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now, practicality. Well, like I say, you've got a manual opening boot, which is absolutely fine, because actually, you know, it's quite a light boot, that I have to say, and the struts are nicely damped as well. And look, actually, it takes some of the bumper as well. So although it is quite a lift up there, that's just down to the actual ride height of the car. It's not because you've got a high load sill in terms of, you know, then you're dropping down into the boot. You know, it's got a reasonable lift up there, but it's a flat load entry into the boot. There's underfloor storage for cables as well, which is good. Nothing up at the front. There's no frunk in the car, okay? And it's got an interesting thing because the rear seat bench will slide as well. So if you don't have rear passengers, you need a slightly longer boot, you can slide those seats forward and give yourself a bit more space. Or if you've got passengers, you can maximise interior space and minimise the boot. So again, it's quite practical in that sense. 306 litres is what you've got here. So again, not bad. You know, if you think about it, a Volkswagen ID3 is what, 380 litres of boot space, so it's a bit down on that. But it doesn't look it, I have to say. You know, that's quite a reasonable size of boot. And if you fold the rear seats down, which are split into a 40-20-40 section, then that takes total capacity up to 562 litres. Although that does seem quite a small figure, I think, you know, for the overall space inside. So I do wonder whether they've just measured it up to window line, perhaps. Anyway, that's what the figures they've given me. When we look inside the boot here, you've got these little flaps here, so when the seats move forward, they will just keep the back end, dare I suggest, covered and stop things like dropping down. So again, it's little practicalities like that that I like. But as I say, you've got underfloor storage. This car's got the JBL audio system, so that's got the subwoofer there. There's a couple of hooks in the back, but nothing really else to sort of like really write home about in terms of practicality for things like luggage nets or dividing boot floors and things like that, which might have been nice to see. Again, given the sort of target market for the car, that urban environment, you know, hanging shopping bags, making sure they don't slide about. I mean, our Satsumas go flying across the back of the car. But otherwise, it's not a bad boot for class and the size of car that it is. Right. Rear seat accommodation. So at the moment, the rear seats are slid all the way back, as I say, to sort of maximise the interior space. So that was the size of the boot that you saw, the 306 litres, with the seats in their furthest back position. But as I say, you can slide these forward. Now, although they're split in a 40-20-40 split, they slide in a 60-40 arrangement, if that makes sense. So you've got the 60 sort of like percent sort of like side on this side, and the 40 over that side. But as I say, they split in that 40-20-40. Okay, right. How's the rear seat accommodation? Well, that driving position is me at 5'8". Okay, I've set that seat up for myself, and actually, there's quite a lot of leg room here. Again, we're thinking this is a B segment SUV. Now, I don't say it's as spacious as, say, maybe the Kia EV3, which is a bit odd because, I say, it has a slightly longer wheelbase in some respects, so it doesn't feel quite as spacious as that car, but certainly feels more spacious than the likes of, you know, Jeep Avenger, Vauxhall Mocha, cars like that, which also might be a consideration if you're looking at this car. Obviously, the battery is underneath the floor, so there is a flat floor across, so you can get sort of like 3 kiddie winks will sit easily, I think, across the rear bench of the car. Your feet don't feel too pushed up, in fairness, you know, they're not bad. And I can just get my feet, even on wearing my big boots, I can get them just underneath the driver's seat, which I've got all the way down as well. So it's not bad, it's quite good accommodation. What isn't maybe so great is headroom, because this car has got the panoramic sunroof. So actually, although it slopes up at the back where my actual head is, you are conscious of a slightly lower roof line just in your eyesight there. But then again, if you do have a model without the roof, then obviously that's going to be better, you know, so just be aware of that. Right, what have we got? Well, we've got ISOFIX points in the back. We don't have mat pockets in the back of the driver's seat. I never understand that. You've got a mat pocket on the passenger seat, and you've got a door bin down there, which will just take a bottle. It's shaped for a bottle. We've got USB-C ports down in there, a tiny little bit in there that you get a packet of pull limits in, but no centre armrest. However, he says that, yeah, there you go. Look, you can fold down the middle section of the seat, and you've got cup holders there. So it's not ideal, because obviously now you can see what's in the boot, if you want to use that as a cup holder, as an armrest, and it does fold sort of like flat onto the seat. It's not as nice as it would be as if it was slightly higher up. But again, there's plenty of cars in this class don't even have that. So I'm going to give credit to Toyota that it's actually got something. But the seats themselves feel quite nice, they feel relatively supportive. I mean, obviously we're going to have to drive the car to see how we get on with it in terms of that. But yeah, I don't think it's too bad back here. Again, certainly not the worst in class. Certainly not the best, but it's nice, average, sort of like size for families, I would say. What is nice, however, is the height of the car. So your ability to get in and out of it. You know, as I say, if you're a bit elderly and you just want to sort of like sit down and then kind of swing your legs in, actually it's quite good. The door opens at a reasonable angle as well. So again, if you're loading elderly passengers or you're putting sort of like children into the back, you've got a reasonable space here. You know, you can get in and out quite easily from the car. So that has to be commended. Right, apologies, there's lights in here, so apologies if it's a bit glary. Right, the interior up the front. Bit of a mixed bag for me, but mostly good. Mostly I like this, okay? So, a couple of things to start off with. What you see in front of you here. So it doesn't have the silly, they're not going to go for this yoke style of steering wheel that they've mooted on the BZ4X and obviously their Lexus equivalent. You get this slightly squared off steering wheel, two-spoken design, quite nice. Driver attention monitor in front of you there. Now, where's the power button? Does it come on? There we go. Right. So you've got two screens, okay? A 10.25 inch screen in front of the driver. I close that there. A 10.25 inch screen in front of the driver. And then a 10.1 inch infotainment screen here, okay? Now this has your usual applications for smartphone connectivity. So Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. I have to say, you know, the majority of the controls on it are quite nice. You know, the graphics are nice, quite stylish, you know, not something, dare I suggest, I've ever really sort of like been able to say about Toyota before, and apologies. And as I say, I'm a bit of a Toyota fan. Oh, no, don't want to say a command. Stop. Oh. So obviously it's got voice activation, as you can see. So this is quite nice, okay? But obviously if you're sitting in your driving position, you know, you've got a little bit of a stretch, but not much. However, the one thing I do like is the thing that you might need access to, such as your heating and ventilation and your volume, are physical buttons. Well done, Toyota. So temperature, fan speed, aircon, front defrost, heated rear screen, and volume control. That's, you know, a nice physical button in there. There's a nice array of physical buttons on the steering wheel as well. So your usual suspects for things like cruise control and advanced driver assistance systems over on this side, and your media, and for changing the trip info on the dashboard display in front of you there is on the left side. Usual column stocks as you see fit. Quite a high console in here, okay, again, which is quite nice. So you've got a nice commanding driving position. Now this seat is all the way down. This is in, yep, that's in my driving position. So that, and I still feel that I'm sitting quite high up in the car. So I get a good view forward of it. The screen doesn't interrupt your view of the windscreen at all. And you can see sort of like the edges of the bonnet, you know, as you're sitting in your driving position. So that is excellent. You know, it's got a really nice commanding driving position. There's some controls grouped around here. So you've got things such as obviously your gears or your transmission selector here, which is the same as we've seen in the BZ4X. And then you've got things such as hill descent control, drive mode button. There's one here for trail. What does that do? Nothing. I don't know. It says trail on it. Electric park brake, and then your sort of like auto hold thing. There's wireless charging pad there, and I'll get onto this in a second. So the thing that I don't like is this is all that piano black. I really don't like that at all. And I have to say, I did have a little bit of a dig at them this morning because the interior is just grey. You know, it's very grey. And that was very, very similar to what we saw with the BZ4X. It's a very grey interior, this. It'd be nice if it just had a little bit more of a lift in here. But on the whole, the design of it is quite nice. You know, your nice sort of like, you know, boxy sort of like air vents there. You know, you've got obviously 4 air vents across the car, you know, so you can direct airflow. That's good. As I say, there's a wireless charging pad up on this model here. You get 2 cup holders there, but they will not take my Yeti coffee flask. They will just take a water bottle. However, that can go in the door one. So that's nice and easy and slots in there. Centre armrest with cubby, yeah, reasonable amount of space in there. And then as I say, let's talk about specifications now. So you get 3 trim levels in the car, okay? And I'm sorry, I had to write them down because we just got told this morning. So you get Icon, which is your starter for 10, your lead into the range, but they see that as a sort of mid-spec car because it still gets things like reverse camera, 18-inch wheels, smart entry, you know, so keyless sort of entry. Then you move up to design, which is the mid-level, which they see as being the top seller in the UK. They will see that as being that's the one we're going to sell most of, and that adds things such as the heated front seats and a heated steering wheel, so that's good. This is an XL, okay, so this is top of the range stuff, so that gets the 19-inch alloys, the JBL audio system, the sunroof, and the dual tone paint. So that's the only thing I will say in terms of that. With that sunroof, it does eat into, I think, headspace in the back if you've got taller passengers. So, you know, there's not a massive load of difference in some of the sort of the equipment levels, but that mid-spec one that they see as being the big sell in the UK is probably the best. It's probably the sweet spot in the range. And we'll obviously talk about, you know, battery size and stuff like going forward. But on the whole, I quite like this interior. Again, it's like the outside of it. It's nice, it's chunky. You know, it feels like it's, you know, sort of like been designed to last. You know, I like the style of it. I just don't like some of the materials. That's the only thing I don't really like. You know, all this glossy black plastic. You know, it's on the door panel as well there. I think they could have done a better job rather than that. Oh, I should have mentioned also the storage underneath there. So there's a wee storage tray underneath there, as you tend to get in most cars. But I like the design of it, as I say. I like the fact that everything feels elevated. And as I say, if you've got a really nice high driving position. The screen's a little bit of a stretch forward, but not massively so. Maybe it's just because I've got short arms. And again, as I say, the fact that you've got things such as, you know, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto in there. Yes, there is a climate menu in the screen, but for the stuff you want to adjust quickly, such as the temperature and the fan speed, it's on a physical button. Same with the volume control, as I say, so that's good. So it's got quick, easy access, so that's just a hand span away, and you can obviously do that without taking your eye off the road, which is good because obviously you've got your driver attention warning system there. The screen itself, why can't I get this screen to... Oh, there we go. Didn't press the button hard enough. So you've got a nice digital screen layout in front of you, where you've got your speedometer slap bang in the middle there, and then energy meter on the side, and then your ADAS systems there. It's nice, it's crisp. There's quite a few things starting to come onto it just now, but bearing in mind this is a prototype car that's obviously just maybe wired up slightly differently. But in fairness, the numerics and the actual graphics and the font they use is very easy and very clear to see at a glance. So that is good. That's also very good as well. Where are we here? I was just going to go back onto this here. Is there different? You get nav as well. Yeah, there you go. You get an inbuilt nav as well. And I have to say, Toyota's system is a lot better than it used. No, I don't want to say a command. This car company's system is a lot better than it used to be. I always thought the graphics were a bit, you know, my first sat nav system. So it's a lot better in the car now as well. And then obviously if you go in there, you can have various different things there. You can set your timer charge there, your EV data there, and also there's a settings button in there, so you can go into there to switch off your ADAS systems. I don't know, they haven't mentioned if there's any sort of shortcuts to turn off lane departure and you know, speed limit warning like most manufacturers are now fitting, so that I don't know about in fairness. But look, on the whole, it's quite a quick sneak peek today. I quite like this. As I say, I like the driving position. I like the design of it. I do like that. I think some of the materials up on maybe the top of the dash, it is a little bit shinier plastic up there. But as I say, it's certainly, even though this is a prototype car, it feels well built. It feels typical Toyota. And by the sounds of it, what they're saying is they will come well equipped as standard, you know, when the final cars get announced for the UK. But I wish there was a slightly better colour scheme for the car, you know, a slightly lighter interior maybe choice. The seats themselves feel quite nice. This one's obviously got the half sort of like synthetic leather and cloth in it, and that feels nice, you know, that feels decent enough. It's just all this shiny glossy black piano black, because this is all scratched as it is, you know, so far. That would be nice to have seen something different there. You know, even just the metallic finish they've got around the air vents would have been nice there. I don't know why they've gone for that. Anyway, they have, and that's that. But on the whole, it's not quite the sort of like the interior, I think, of the EV3. You know, it's somewhere between that and say something like the Fiat 600e and the Jeep Avenger. It's better than those interiors, and I do like the Jeep's interior, but this just feels, from a design point of view, just a slightly more thought out, again, more chunky kind of style about it somehow. But it's not quite as good as an EV3, so it's somewhere in the middle of them all. I just wish they hadn't fitted all that piano black plastic. Right, let's discuss batteries and charging now, or as much as we can, because the car hasn't been homologated as yet, so we don't have final sort of like absolute, sort of like range to give you in charging times and things like that, but I'll tell you what I can. 2 battery options, okay? So if you go for the lead-in Icon model, it comes with a 49 kilowatt hour battery, okay? If you move up to the design, or what's the top of the range one? I said the XL, then they come with a 61 kilowatt hour battery, okay? Now again, that will vary on the power ratings, as I'll tell you about in a second, in terms of the power of the motor. Range. On the bigger battery, they're looking at a range of round about circa 250 miles, okay? So the lead-in 49 kilowatt hour Icon, you're probably going to say, I would suggest, 200 miles or so is where that car is going to be at. So that's going to be the price entry point, but the design is where Toyota UK sees sort of like the majority of customers buying. So that means you get the 61 kilowatt hour battery and, as I say, a range of around about 250 miles. They're also hoping to have fairly quick charging speeds on it. So again, not confirmed, they're talking around about 150 kilowatt charging speeds, which would be excellent for class and better than a lot of the competition, in fairness, as well. So your actual stop and go charge time, to go from your 10 to 80%, given the fact that it's not a huge battery, like not 80 odd kilowatts, 80 kilowatt hours that you get in, say, the EV3 or the Skoda Elrock, so your 10 to 80% charge, if it's 150 kilowatts, could be quite quick. So that's good. You get onboard 11 kilowatt charger as standard as well. And good news, heat pump is also standard on the car as well. So obviously we're going to have to drive the car so we can tell you what it's like, but I can give you some numbers here. If you go for that 49 kilowatt hour one in the lead-in Icon model, then what you get is a 144 horsepower single motor on the car. If you move up to either the design or the XL, because you're getting the bigger 61 kilowatt hour battery, then that gives you more power as well at 174 horsepower. So it's pretty much on par for one class in some respects, because bear in mind cars from the Stellantis group, they're not quite as powerful as that, although things like such as the Kia EV3 and of course Skoda Elrock offer slightly better performance. But as I say, let's not judge the car until we've actually driven it. That's when we're able to tell you really what the car is like and how competitive it is in what is a very competitive class. And of course, your next question, I'm not going to be able to answer either, because prices have yet to be announced for the car. However, what Toyota have told us this morning is they will be competitive, because in their opinion is if you're not competitively priced, irrespective of what you offer, you're not going to sell any cars. And I have to agree with that. So if I was a gambling man and I had to take an educated guess, it's going to start somewhere in the low 30,000s and go up somewhere probably just above that 36, 37,000 pound bracket. I don't see it being quite 40 grand, this car. But I could be proved wrong with that, obviously, when they do announce prices, in fairness. So how's the car going to be for timing? Well, what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to order the car from your local Toyota dealership somewhere in around Q2 of this year, with delivery starting towards the tail end of Q3. That is the plan. And of course, with Toyota, one of the big selling points, I think, with this brand is the warranty package, because although it's only 3 years as standard, remember, if you go and get the car serviced at your local Toyota dealership, every year you service it, they add another year's warranty to it, up to the car being 10 years old, which I think is a really compelling piece of product that they offer in that when it comes to after sales package. Because I always think it's always good to establish a good rapport with your local dealer, and Toyota customers are very brand loyal. And of course, in terms of sort of getting a good sort of like second-hand one when the car's become 3-4 years old, you're still under a manufacturer's warranty if the car's been looked after within a Toyota dealership. So that should prove quite good for residual. So, big market sector, especially in Europe. As I say, 1 in every 5 new cars sold in Europe today is a B-segment SUV, and more of those are electric B segment SUVs. Now, in fairness to Toyota, they have got a real foothold in this marketplace already with the Yaris Cross. And given how brand loyal a lot of Toyota customers are, I can see an awful lot of people who have had maybe a Yaris Cross and hybrid and are going, now's the time to move fully electric, now's the time to do it. They've got a nice walk up straight into this car. They've got a good relationship with their dealer, they know the car, they know the product, they're going to be happy to move into that sort of like, you know, this style of car now. But there is a lot of competition, and Toyota, irrespective of what we think of what, you know, sort of like size of car it fits in what market space, they've mentioned a lot of cars this morning that they see this car as being competing directly against. And of course the big two they've mentioned are the Kia EV3 and the Skoda Elroq. Now that's quite punchy in fairness. I do think that Toyota are being quite bullish about that, which makes me wonder whether or not there's a quiet confidence about this car. We'll need to obviously see once we've driven it. But of course, they're two cars that I think are right at the top of the game in this market sector. You know, the EV3 and the Skoda Elroq. So well done, Toyota, if you've got a car that's as good as them. Okay, but there's others, aren't there? There's loads of others. In terms of the European brands, then obviously we've got the likes of Stellantis Group, and they've got obviously a multitude of offerings in this sector. The Vauxhall Mokka, the Peugeot E2008, the new Citroen product that's coming out, the EC3 Max, you know, seating up to 7, the Vauxhall Frontera seating up to 7, and low price starting point as well, remember. Fiat Grande Panda, maybe that's a car you might consider with this, but it's not just that car Fiat have as well. Remember, they've got the 600e, and of course if you're talking about the 600e, then of course you've got to talk about the Jeep Avenger as well. So that's a car you could compete with in this car, this sector. In terms of the higher specification range in this, then of course there's the DS automobiles, DS3. That's another car. A lot of people forget about that car, but it's quite a good little car in fairness. And then of course there's competition from sort of like the Far East, from where Toyota come from, because remember you've got Honda with the ENY1. Now it's not an absolute trailblazer, that ENY1, but a bit like Toyota, Honda customers are very loyal, and that's not a bad car. Comes well equipped to standard, a bit pricey in fairness, but there was some good finance packages on the car, so maybe that might be a competitor for the car as well. And of course, remember, this shares a lot of commonality with the Suzuki e-Vitara. So of course, Suzuki is going to be a competitor as well, just in the same way the Solterra from Subaru is a competitor with the BZ4X. And we've also seen some new entrants into the market from China. Of course, there's BYD. Now, at first you think, oh, the Atto 3, that's the car. They've got the new Atto 2 coming out, you know, the B-sector SUV car. That's a car that's going to compete with. And there's also things like, such as the Moda E5, because in terms of price point, you are getting a slightly bigger car for the same price as where we think this is going to be. So that could be under your consideration as well. So, what else does it say? They've got a strong foothold in the marketplace already with the Yaris Cross. What I am saying is, when you're moving into the electrified world, there's a lot of good cars in this market, and there's a lot of choice for consumers. But as I say, where Toyota are playing very, very strong hand is what the fact that they've got already a foothold there with their Yaris Cross customers. And with that warranty package as well, the other thing, as I say, you're going to have is good residual values, which means finance packages could be quite good, so they could be very competitive on the Toyota. So don't bet the house on them not being a big player in this market. If you were a cynic, you might start to think Toyota are still playing a little bit of catch up. They've taken the sweet time getting into this market space, a market, like I keep saying, which is huge in Europe, where they already have a presence with the Yaris Cross. But something makes me think that they're doing this quite right, because it would have been very easy for them, dare I suggest, just to electrify a Yaris Cross and go, there you go. You know, we've now got a multi-energy platform with what we have there. We've put a bigger battery in it and a single motor, and it does 180 odd miles of range and job done. But they haven't. They've gone down the route of a bespoke EV. And in terms of keeping costs down, that's the clever part, because obviously they've teamed up with another manufacturer, such as Suzuki, who also want sort of like to play in this market sector. So by sharing development, engineering and manufacturing, it makes sure that the costs are kept down. They may be late to the party, but I don't think Toyota are here just to make up the numbers. They're going to want a large slice of the cake. And if this is as good as they're telling me that it is, they might just get it. Thank you for watching another episode of Sneak Peeks on AutoEV. As always, please make sure you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then once you've done that, press the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you'll be notified when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you have enjoyed this week's video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and of course don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about Toyota's urban cruiser. Good enough? Is it the right thing for Toyota to do? Do you think this is going to be a good entrance into the market? Do you have a Yaris Cross? Are you tempted now to go fully electric with a car like this? Have you never had a Toyota before? Are you thinking of moving across? Up to 10-year warranty with them? Well equipped as standard? Good charging speeds perhaps? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Now remember, we're also across on all social media platforms as well. So if you're into your Facebook, your Instagram, your TikTok, your X, your LinkedIn, we're there as well. So if you could give us a follow there, that would certainly help us. And remember, if you're in the market for an electric car, it might not be a new urban cruiser. Maybe you're thinking, actually, what I really fancy is a second-hand BZ4X or a second-hand Jeep Avenger, whatever. And you need to know more about it. How do you find out? Well, here's how. Stay on the AutoEV homepage on our YouTube channel, and just at the top there, you'll see a magnifying glass. And if you type the name of the car you're interested in that, then if it's been a new electric vehicle in the UK in the last 5 or 6 years, then of course we've subjected it to the actual road test that car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. And that, folks, is the AutoEV one. Thank you once again for watching. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. Thank you for putting up the slightly strange surroundings that I'm in today. I'll see you again soon.